this is going to be very nice. Having a nice secure step to step on, get up. So now that we're done with phase 4 of Penny, and we're all ready for Easter Jeep Safari in January, we have time to do a few upgrades before April. That's the month of April, not April. Anyway, so one of the things I wanted to do, Kenneth has already done this on his, as part of his video, is I'm going to upgrade my rock slider package. The factory rock rails right there, they're useful but kind of chintzy and cheap and thin. They don't hold up very well. There's also no good step to get up in, and as I go to 37s it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get up and in. So started looking around. I've been surfing internet forums and such, looking at all the various options, and there's a whole bunch of them out there, and they're all really good. Some of them better than others. I chose the LoD Destroyer Series JL 4-door rock sliders and ordered them directly from LoD. As you can see, I printed out the instruction book. It's 16 pages. Got this rock slider, and there's the other ones on the other side of the Jeep. And then there's all the bracketry and everything that comes with all of this. And you can see that I've actually started to put some bolts together. I like to go through, when I receive a new package, I like to go through and make sure that I have all of the hardware that's supposed to be included in the kit. If you look back at one of our other videos with the track bar reinforcement bracket, you'll see that I actually was missing one of the bolts, and that reminded me, yes, I need to double check. Yes, I do have all the hardware and it all fits and everything. So we're going to get this guy up in the air and get these factory rock rails off and put on some upgrades today. So one of the really nice things about this particular kit, it's got these nice brackets that bolt to the frame rail, and then the slider attaches to it. But they come, and where is it? It's right there. There's a little indicator. It's a little arrow pointing which direction this needs to face, so that you can't get this backwards and put it on the wrong side unless you're not paying attention. So yeah, they thought of a lot of things. They have good instructions. This kit does seem to be really well thought out. Okay, so one of the things we have to do when we're putting on these rock sliders is when we lift the vehicle up into the air, the lift points are about right where the brackets are going to go for the rock slider, which will be nice once it's in, because then I can use those as lift points to lift the vehicle. But what we end up having to do, we've got on the lift here, we've got, you can see the truck adapters that kind of space the arm away from the frame as we lift, and that will give us the clearance to get in and get the brackets in place and everything. Really nice. Alright, so just kind of going over exactly how these are going to mount. So this is the nice new frame bracket. I'll get to that in a minute. If we come underneath, you can see that this rock slider attaches at the pinch weld right here, and then again at the body tub, and it does that a couple of places down the line. And so this is actually just fully mounted to the body, which is weaker sheet metal. One of the reasons I like this is that we get this nice big heavy-duty frame bracket, and it's going to go, it's in the way, but it's going to go here. You can see that it bolts to the solid frame of the Jeep. Now this one doesn't attach more than that. If you come back, the other brackets are actually also going to, they're going to bolt in here, but they're also going to bolt at the body mount, and so especially in the back they're going to have a lot of strength, and so that's one of the big reasons why these aftermarket sliders are a lot better, is because they have a much more solid piece to mount to than just the body. One of the things, and you know, we've covered this before, when you install aftermarket parts from multiple vendors to do multiple things, sometimes you run into interference. You can see I've got my nice metal cloak skid plates, and yeah, I've used them a couple of times, but they've got this, you know, they're nice and solidly bolted to the frame, but this bracket is going to come in and need to occupy the same space. Now what we are going to do here is that we're going to drop this side of the skid plate. We're going to make some room for this tab to fit in, and then on the back bracket there's going to be a tab. The idea is that this bracket will be nice and solidly attached. Part of it is because these two holes are what bolt to the bolts in the body mount, and so we want those up as solid as we can. Also, if for any reason I need to drop the skid plate, I don't want to have to drop these brackets because that's a big pain. And so this is going to go in first. This is going to go in on top of it, or underneath it actually, and so we'll just figure out how to get all that to work together nicely. All right, so first thing we have to do, get these out. Got a nice handy impact wrench. And there are a couple of bolts bolting to the pinch welds, so I'm going to take all these out first. Or third. So one tip, I always get a Ziploc bag of some kind, put the fasteners in it, and that way, because I'm going to list these for sale, somebody will want them, and if I have all the hardware in a nice handy bag, makes it easier to hand it off.
3 bolts into the body from underneath, and 6 nuts that go through the pinch weld to hold the factory rock slider on. And just remove them all. Not really enough room for these little 10mm through the pinch weld to get the power tool in there. Maybe an electric ratchet would work.
Yeah, but a ratcheting wrench, as you can see, works really well.
Yeah, and these are just little
10mm.
10mm. And when you start taking the last one off, be aware that, you know, it's no longer connected and it's going to want to relocate.
All right, so we've got all, the first one is very, very loose, and we're just on the last one here, and so you can see the whole thing moves. And we left the front nut on because we don't want it to fall off accidentally until we're ready to go.
Down. And that's this lovely place to just let that rest for a second.
Yeah, and you can see here, these are captive studs for the 6 nuts, and then the holes for the 3 bolts.
Now pay attention when you're taking it apart. Don't go gonzo, because there are a couple of other bolts going through the pinch weld that hold the front fender and body panels on. Those you don't want to remove.
Yeah. Okay, so here we have the factory original. It's nice and dirty. It's snowy and nasty on the road, so I haven't had a chance to really clean it off. But yeah, it's kind of thin. It's narrow. This one is the new one. You can see the nice integrated step, and it's got got the dimple dies that are pointing up, and so even when it's a little bit slick and icy, this gives you a little bit of traction when you're climbing up into your Jeep. Yeah, and this is, I want to say 3/16 plate steel. This is probably a lot thinner. I don't know. It feels a little bit thinner. You'll notice that this rock rail is longer front to rear. And if you get a bigger tire with these factory rails, sometimes the bigger tire, when you stuff it up in, can actually hit the rail. And having this be shorter means you can get a little bit more up travel before the tire hits the rock rail. So we start with this flag nut, and the instructions have you put this one in first, but this is a nice handy hole to get fingers in to make sure everything fits. You've got a hole and a slot here, and this can go, it just goes in, and the bolt goes in the hole, and the tab just sticks down through the slot. And then this one comes in, you assemble the bolt into it because the bracket has a slot so that it'll just slide together. And okay. So that just sits there like that. So it might take a couple of tries to make sure that you get the bolt fully threaded.
Okay, now this is not tight, so it can suck in.
Yeah. So it's not torque to spec, but it's good and firm. Okay. We're going to start with, we've got the first one on, we're going to start with the second one here. First thing we do, there's 2 bolts on either side of this body mount. And they're actually just nuts. And they're 16 millimeter. Okay, and now that we got that, then the bracket can bolt in, but now we got to get these out, and Kenneth is finding the correct size Allen key, and we'll tell you what it is as soon as we figure it out. So we figured it out. It is indeed an 8 millimeter Allen key socket. Okay. Oh, and then this guy. Oh, somebody's being clever, bringing in a jack stand. So the instructions actually cover whether you have stock skid plates or not. I do not, and because these are a little bit of a boat side, and they're configured differently than stock skid plates, we're gonna not do what the instructions say. We're gonna do it a way that makes a little more sense to me, which is to get this in between the frame and the skid plate. So it's got this little spacer plate in here, because you can see here the factory frame actually has a step down, and so they put in a spacer to handle that. We are going to retain this spacer plate because there is a notch here as well that we need to clear, and because we're not putting anything in between here, this is going to be nice and compressed, and it needs this gap.
So what I would suggest is that we trim that spacer plate to accommodate the ear from the bracket, so that we don't have the extra thickness.
That's actually not a bad idea. I kind of like that. Oh, I need a real tool. So, running into a problem. The lip here doesn't quite clear this washer when trying to get everything assembled, so we're going to take the body mount and washer out. Now that we have a tool that hopefully can do it. Okay.
Can you take it all the way out or just loosen it?
Well, I think there might be a loose nut up on the top of it. Okay. So one of the issues we ran into is that as we were taking this bolt out, we broke the captive nut, which is going to be its own kind of fun. So yeah, be careful when you're trying to remove these. Okay. Now, there we go. All right, back up. And I need one of my bolts. So, okay, well, we got it in place. So, one step closer. So yeah, just use an extension. These are flanged nuts, so they stay at the end of the piece. And okay, so that's roughly in place. Okay, so as I'm finding out, this actually will go up and in without having to remove the body bolt, and so I highly suggest, if you can, do not remove the body bolt before you put these in. You don't really need to. Okay, we're in place.
Okay. So then this is that shim that Metal Cloak provides, and I think what we want to do is basically trim this to here.
Yeah, you could turn it back a little further, just to give a gap.
So, long about there.
Here. Okay, here we got it trimmed. Other half of line down there.
Before you do that,
Hole lines up about right, and then we've got quarter half-inch gap here between the bracket and the shim. So and rust preventative. Good thought. Because these are zinc coated, which helps prevent rust, but when you cut through, there's no zinc on the inside.
just a really handy thing to have in the shop for these kinds of little, just a little bit.
Okay. Blue thread locker. Yeah, and this has a nice domed washer. It helps you slide over rocks as you go. And of course, start as many of these as you can while it's all loose. Because especially on a used skid plate that's been on the rocks a little bit, this can be tweaked, and it can be hard to line things up again. So everything goes in, everything started. Okay, so we didn't manage to get it on video, but we did. So I've got a 1 1/8 inch wrench that I was able to use. I had it pried above the
Washer.
above the heavy washer, and I pushed down, and Kenneth used an impact which spins it fast enough to make it actually go. We got it down, it actually tightened in and cinched this in place, so we backed it off just slightly, pulled the wrench out, and we were able to get it tight again. So yeah, I'd highly recommend, if you can avoid taking the body bolt out, don't do it. When I put this, when I was checking all the hardware, I made sure that you know, I kind of vaguely assembled everything. It's something I like to do, just to make sure that it all is in the right place, fits right. But now it's time to put the actual piece in place, and so these actually need to be out of the way. All right. Let's just set it down for now. This is going to be a exercise in frustration, I bet. This piece is a nut plate, and it's got the carriage bolts on it. It's got to slide back in here. And then I have to hold one in place. All right. So my plan is to get one bolt through a hole with a nut on it. All right, so this is kind of you definitely need 2 sets of hands, and up we go, and just okay.
Got one thread, but yeah.
All right.
Now I've got 2 threads. That is one bolt.
Yeah, so a couple of these you kind of have to do by braille. Yeah, this on the back they have these little ones because the step is kind of in the way of the mounting point, and getting it lined up is a little bit of a challenge because you got to do it one-handed at an awkward angle. So trying to get your fingers in to get this one started is a challenge. Because you can get your finger in, but then trying to get your finger in with your other hand doesn't really work. So I'm running a screwdriver in to hold the head of the bolt. He's just tucked in there where he's inconvenient. So it takes a bit of squirming and multiple curse words and 2 people getting at the nuts and bolts to hold them all in place. I think what we might try on the other side is masking tape on the nut plates to hold bolts in place. I'm gonna give that a shot for the other side. But yeah, we got all of the nuts started. There is a lot of adjustability in this kit. You can slide it forward, backwards. And so right now everything is just hanging loose, and it can come up and down a little bit. It can go forwards and backwards. And so we're gonna spend a minute figuring out exactly where we want it to sit. So roughly 1 7/8. It's closer to 1 3/4. So lift up just a hair, about 1/8 of an inch. And that's about it. So that's going to be relatively flat, straight with the body. I did figure out, I pushed this as far forward as I could get it, and it ends just right here, and there's still a little bit of a gap in the front from the end of the rail to the body line. So I'm going to call that good. Okay, so again, the ratcheting wrench really helps out, because getting at some of these bolts, especially the top ones, is a bit of a challenge. But yeah, we got all these torqued down. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 total. Got them all bolted down. Double checked our measurements. We're close enough for government work. Okay. This one's easier. So one of the tricks we're using on this side is we're holding the bolts on with tape, and that way we only have to hold the bolt plate in place, and it makes it easier to get the nuts started. Okay, so this side went in a little bit differently than the other side. The skid plate configuration is slightly different. You'll notice that the rear tire's off. What we needed to do was drop this entire skid plate, and as you can see in here, so we had to get that bolt out, and in order to do that we had to drop the skid plate, which is this bolt and this bolt. We dropped some of the others, but the one we had to get to was this one to get the bracket to drop, and so we pulled the rear tire. That let us drop the skid plate enough to get that bolt out, get this guy in. We cinched him back up, tightened him, and then we put this bracket in between the skid plate and the frame, and actually you can almost see in there there's another factory gas tank skid plate bolt there also. And then we repurposed the bracket, or the shim that we cut for the other side, because we added a 1/4 inch gap here. We used the 1/4 inch plate that we had cut off and we were going to discard. It's now in here, so this is nice and level again. So this side, after you've done the first side and figured out how to do it wrong, this side just went right in. We didn't really have any problems at all. Still have to align it. We just got all the nuts started, and then we're ready to go. I mean, these are heavier duty, and that's really the reason I got these. Is the plate is thicker and it's stronger. Side benefit, steps to get in and out a little easier. Also, these stick out from the body a little better, so as I'm kind of going along, hopefully a rock will keep me from, or these will keep me from digging a rock into my doors. But also, you can see the spray pattern here where the tires just coat the side of the Jeep anytime I'm going anywhere. And this sticks out a little further. It probably won't catch everything, but I'm gonna bet that this is gonna help keep the sides of my Jeep a little cleaner as I drive around in the dirt and the snow and wet and mud and everything.
There was like grab that and it tries to take the lever away from you.
Oh yeah, because you didn't quite
Get it, yeah, release.
Oh, this is going to be very nice. Having a nice secure step to step on, get up, get in. So, straightforward project today, just getting these rock sliders on. The instructions were fair. Having put these on a couple of times, I kind of knew how to get through it. Took the two of us about 4 to 5 hours of actual working in the garage. We took a long lunch, but pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Bolts right up. The one side took a little longer because we had to deal with the skid plate, figure out exactly how to do that. But once we figured out, yeah, just go ahead and drop the skid plate most of the way. Everything went together okay. So hopefully these things, hopefully I don't need them, but you know, that's what they're there for, is protection just in case.